The Conquer Worry Show, episode number 18.
Welcome to the Conquer Worry Show, the show dedicated to helping people who are struggling with their mind. If you are looking for stories of resilience, if you are looking for motivation or inspiration, or if you are just looking for strategies to conquer worry, this is the show for you. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conquer Worry Show. Today we have author Tracy Shawn on to discuss her work and how it could help someone who is struggling with anxiety. Tracy lives and writes on the Central Coast of California. She earned a master's degree in clinical psychology, and she is the author of The Grace of Crows. It is an award-winning novel about an anxiety-ridden woman who finds happiness through some of the most unexpected ways. It's been dubbed a stunning debut novel by Hall of Fame reviewer Grady Harp. The Grace of Crows has also been hailed as an accurate portrayal of generalized anxiety disorder and could be a healing opportunity for any reader. Tracy, are you ready to help some folks conquer worry?
I hope to do so. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining us. So first, we would like to get to know you. We're interested in things that we couldn't find if we did a simple Google search of your name. Could you take a minute and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I was thinking about this interview with your show, Conquer Worry, and I thought what I'd like to share that would be very appropriate for your show is that I've actually been fighting anxiety and worry literally since the day I was born. My mother told me that when the nurse handed me to her, she said, "Oh my goodness, this is the most worried-looking newborn I've ever seen in my life." And sure enough, my mom looked down and saw me with these huge scared eyes and furrowed brow as if to say, "Oh my goodness, what am I doing in this world?" And I've grown up ever since, struggling with worry and anxiety. And I find it's very interesting because I do know from research that anxiety can be genetic. So I've had lots of experience, so to speak, with it.
I'm pretty sure a Google search would not have turned up that piece of information.
No.
All right, Tracy. Well, we like to bookend our interviews with the most important questions, and we'll talk about finding your purpose in life later, but let's focus on worry right now. In 1 to 2 sentences, how do you personally conquer worry?
There's 2 ways I do it. And the first thing is to recognize that there's going to be bad days. And I can sail through those a lot better, realizing it and telling myself the next day can be better. The next hour could be better, the next week. The second thing I do is I remind myself when I get into those what-if thoughts that there are only stories. And since I am such a great storyteller, I can make myself believe them, but I step back and say, hey, do not believe your own fairy tales.
Good. Sounds like some mindfulness is what you use to conquer worry. Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, listen, you've already mentioned you've struggled with worry your whole life. Take us to a point in time where it was particularly dark for you and give our listeners a touch on what it was like and then how you got yourself out of that hole.
All right. Well, it was in my late 20s, and my chronic fear and worry, which probably wasn't really anxiety disorder, morphed at that point into what probably therapists would say was a chronic and acute generalized anxiety disorder. It felt to me on a scale of 1 to 10 at that point, like a 10 plus. And there would be nights I couldn't sleep, and my heart would be pounding, and I just felt like that it was never going to go away. And I tried lots of different things, and they didn't work. But through all those years, and there were a number of years, I did keep telling myself, it can't always be like this. I will find an answer. And I eventually climbed out. And again, I used the self-talk to help me through, as well, I have to say this, as well as some great nonfiction self-help books. And that really helped me just know that I wasn't alone.
Okay, great. I tell you what, you definitely have the experience for the field that you're in, and let's turn to it. So tell us, how can a novel help somebody who is struggling with anxiety learn some ways to cope?
That's a great question, because we were talking about the nonfiction self-help books, and there's so many wonderful ones out there. So how could fiction help? Well, I know, and I think I would guess that a lot of other of your listeners would probably agree with me. Novels can help us get outside of ourselves. And I know for myself, when I woke up in the middle of the night and the what if thoughts are racing, if I sit there or lay there and just try to get through them, it's not going to really work as well as if I turn on a light and I open up a novel and I get engaged with a story. And then I climb outside of myself, and within half an hour I sometimes can just shut off that light and get back to sleep. So with that in mind, I thought, well, I want to know a little bit more about this, and other people feel the same way. And are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I heard a click. So I did a research for an article on it, and I was really surprised to find out that there was a study at Emory University, and the professor, Gregory Burns, the person that started the study, found, and he was quoted as saying, and I'll quote him here, the neural changes that we found associated with physical sensation and movement systems suggest that reading a novel can transport you into the body of the protagonist. And he goes on to say that the neural changes that weren't just immediate reactions, but persisted the mornings after the readings, as well as for 5 days after the participants completed the novel. So I think that a lot of people already knew this intuitively, and now science is backing it up.
Yeah, I'd say so. And think about it, 5 days worth of relief from it. At least from my experience, better than going for a jog. You know, that helps me for about a day.
Yeah. Well, if you put them both together, I think that's a pretty good combination.
Yeah, God.
Yeah.
So, well, tell us, and this might be self-evident now, but tell us why you wrote The Grace of Crows.
I wrote The Grace of Crows because my passion for writing, I wanted to combine that with my struggle with anxiety. And I wanted to reach out because I know I felt so alone in my anxiety when I was going through the darkest years. So I wanted to present readers with a heroine's journey that would help them feel less alone with their anxieties and irrational fears. And beyond that, more importantly, let them know that there was hope. And while I was writing it, I was purposely crafting it, trying to write a novel that I would have loved to have read myself when I was going through the worst of my anxiety. And what's exciting for me is that even though I'm with a small press and, not a lot of people around the world know about the novel, the people that have read it and have found out about it, and the reviewers have noted that it has helped them understand their own anxiety, and it's helped them have hope and how much they've related to the protagonist's struggles. So for me as an author, I feel like I completed my goal.
So let's talk about the book a little bit. Empathy is a major theme in the book.
Okay, yes.
Why is that significant?
It's significant. Well, we all know that empathy is important, right? We have to have empathy for our loved ones, our neighbors, our friends, family, because if we don't, and we don't have as good of relationships with them. But I think perhaps, especially in our country, we forget about how important empathy is to ourselves. And if we don't have empathy to ourselves, we are not able to heal as easily. And if we're only berating ourselves for our struggles and calling ourselves weak, how can we heal? And so I wanted to put that in the book, that the empathy is an important theme, not just to others, but to ourselves.
Yeah, that is so true, right?
It is, and I think we have to all remind ourselves that.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. So in the book, the main character's motivation is fairly clear. She, like most of our listeners, they want to banish their anxiety. Can you kind of discuss her struggle as she was trying to manage her anxiety, conquer her worry, and how it affected all the people around her?
Sure. Well, I did take a little bit of this from my own life. I had the character try very many things, and they didn't work, and she was so frustrated and fearful that it was never going to go away. And so I also wrote that within the battle with her anxiety, she had to, like everyone else does in the real world, she also had to deal with the outside forces of work, family, and friends. And yes, people were frustrated with her. And yes, it was difficult to get over her struggle with anxiety just because she had to deal with, we all have to deal with family dynamics. And her husband, who wanted to pretend like everything was okay, and her problems with her teenage children. And I purposely made her own mother a very difficult woman to get along with, as she was a narcissist. And I believe that when you're struggling with any kind of issue, when you have that major person in your life who is so difficult, it makes it that much harder. So I wanted to put that character in there. And beyond that, going back to the empathy, my character, Sailor, learns that beyond her mother's tough, brittle shell, her mother had her own problems, and so her empathy towards her mother healed their relationship.
Tracy, this novel has received a lot of great reviews. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what folks have been saying about it, and specifically how it can help people who are struggling with anxiety?
Sure. Well, how about if I read just 3 short reviews?
Perfect.
And then, so the first one I have down is Sarah Widup for Say What? Savannah May Book Reviews, which I think is a great title for their book review website. And what Sarah Widup says is, quote, "This is a simple, beautiful story, and if you suffer from anxiety, love someone who does, or just like to be inspired by the human spirit, I suggest you pick up a copy soon." Another review by Carrie Meffner, Ph.D., with Casa Magazine says, "Shawn's narrative is intriguing as turns and twists in the plot reveal generational secrets and events that were pushed out of sight and mind but still impact the present. It is written with a sophisticated understanding of psychological dynamics and personalities." And then the third one I'll read, a short one from 4 Word Reviews, says, "The Grace of Crows is a painful but valuable story about how a struggling woman learns the importance of forgiving and helping others, and more importantly, letting them do the same for her." And that's I have more reviews, but people, if they're interested, can look on Amazon at them.
Okay. Well, so tell me, how can listeners get a copy of your book?
It is available on both paperback and ebook versions at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. And I would say in a month or so, it's also going to be available as an audiobook for those of people who like to have that
Oh, that's
available
great.
as well.
Did you get to do the reading for that?
No, I didn't want to. So I through Amazon, they have a great system, and you can put your novel on there, and then professional narrators will contact you. And so the first one that did, I really loved her style. So I'm excited to hear what it sounds like when she's done.
That's great. I'm sure you are. Well, I tell you, we'll have links to everything we discussed in the show notes for this episode. And I'd like to move on to our final couple of questions here.
Okay.
And these have to do with purpose and your life's purpose. And I am convinced that finding your purpose in life lays the foundation for conquering worry. And experience has taught me that very few people can articulate their purpose in life. In no more than 3 sentences, Tracy, what's your life's purpose?
I believe what my life purpose is to learn to take whatever negative experiences and emotions I have and try to turn them into something positive. But beyond this, and more importantly, I hope to help others attain that goal through my written word.
Well, I'd say you're doing that for sure.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
Now, Tracy, for somebody who hasn't found their life's purpose yet, how would you recommend somebody go about trying to figure out what that is for themselves?
I think that a lot of people already know that one of the main ways to understand and know what your life purpose is to know what you're passionate about. And when you do something, you just forget time. But more importantly, I think to find out what your real life purpose is you have to ask yourself what you'd be willing to sacrifice your free time, your energy for. And I think even spending money on furthering your education for it as well. So in other words, I think that if someone really enjoys, let's say, surfing, that may be a hobby more than a life purpose, because they wouldn't may be willing to sacrifice time spent with family and loved ones for that. But a life purpose is something that drives you so much that you're willing to sacrifice a lot for it.
That's a great answer. Free time and energy, right? I always find when I'm working on something that's related to my life's purpose, the time flies very quickly and it doesn't seem like work, and you're always full of energy when you're doing something like that. So I think that's great advice, Tracy.
Thank
Listen,
you, Jay.
Again, we'll have links to everything we discussed in the show notes.
Okay.
Tracy, I appreciate you coming on the Conquer Worry Show.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Jay.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Conquer Worry Show. For additional resources and tips on conquering worry, please visit our website at conquerworry.org.